It's important as a teacher to make sure the classroom environment that you create is suitable for the type of learning that you're going to do with the children. Sometimes as a teacher you'll be teaching whole class lessons, where you stand at the front and give direct instruction, passing on facts and checking understanding with questioning, followed by individual work perhaps. Other times you'll want the children to be sat with each other in a way that facilitates their ability to discuss things in groups, perhaps to draw a mind map of different ideas, or just to challenge each other and think through a problem. Other times you may want to engage the whole class in a much more interactive whole discussion situation. Typically there are 3 classroom layouts that teachers will choose, although there are many variations. Firstly, traditional rows, where the children are sat in rows of desks facing the front, all in exactly the same position. This has a lot of advantages because if you're giving facts, every eye is on you facing the teacher from the front. Another layout that teachers will often choose is cafe style. The classroom is literally laid out like a cafe, with the learners around in a group discussion, enabling them to make contact with each other and eye contact only within their group easily. A third option is what's called the U-shape, where the desks are arranged literally in a U in front of the teacher, so the teacher can move freely into the centre of the discussion and be at the heart of a whole class interactive process. In the next discussion with 2 teachers, we're going to be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of these 3 layouts. Let's think about having the desks in rows, traditionally, with all the children facing you, with you teaching in the front. What are the advantages of that, and what sorts of situations would you use that in?
When you're offering direct instruction to the children, when you have specific messages that you need to deliver, the traditional rows are really useful. You can use good classroom management strategies, such as asking the children to look to the front and so on, and the children are all going to be facing the same direction. So that's a definite advantage.
And I suppose also you've got good visibility then, because you know the children are all facing you right from the
Yes,
start.
absolutely, and particularly if you've got you use a seating plan perhaps, and you know where all the children should be. I don't know if it's any different in a primary school.
Yeah, so that's a secondary perspective. What about in a primary school, Ben?
From a primary perspective, it's very useful for a rollout when you're teaching discrete skills or discrete concepts of particularly mathematics, such as column addition, column subtraction, or any real discrete concept. On the other side of it, the disadvantage is if you're trying to teach some group work, it's harder for teacher circulation. You struggle to get around the classroom. You might not be able to get to one group when you need to, and it does pose a problem.
So that's some advantages for rows, and we started to touch on some of the disadvantages. What other disadvantages are there?
I think what can often happen, the teacher is obviously at the front of the room giving instruction. It's not always easy to see the back row, and it's often the back row where disengagement can start creeping in, and it can have a real effect on your lesson.
So although teachers might think it's good to have it in rows because you just stood there at the front being the strong teacher, in fact it can limit your ability to get around the classroom and manage behaviour by being in all parts of the room.
And also monitoring children's understanding, being able to weave in and out and so on. It's very much a situation where, as Ben suggested, it really stifles group work.
So as an effective teacher, you'll be using a wide range of strategies, sometimes whole class teaching, sometimes group work, and sometimes individual learning, where children got different tasks to do and they're challenged to work on their own. Thinking about the group work question, what's a more advantageous classroom layout for that sort of arrangement?
Well, certainly in secondary, and I know it's probably true in primary, it's the cafe style, where children are sitting around 2 tables, 4 chairs. It's great for individual work, it's great for paired work, and it's great for groups of 4 to complete tasks.
So what about in a primary school?
It's used in the majority of the time in primary schools, and to reiterate the points, because it's really good for group work, for paired work, for individual work, and also it gives the teacher the opportunity to circulate around the classroom a lot more than such as compared with the row layout.
So those are some advantages of cafe style, where you've got children arranged around a table like they're in a cafe. What are the disadvantages of cafe style? What can be the problems?
I think certainly in secondary, it's making sure that the focus of attention is placed on you when you need it, when you require it. For example, when you are sharing lesson objectives, or if you're asking the children for their attention because you need to move them on, they do physically sometimes have to move their chairs and face you, and it can sometimes slow things down a bit.
So there's always going to be some whole class instructional work, even in a very interactive, active learning class with lots of group work. So it's important for teachers to remember to tell the children to turn their chairs to face the teacher, or if possible to arrange as many desks like that as possible. So another arrangement is the U-shape, where you have the desks in a U around the teacher who's engaging with the learners. You chose that arrangement for your poetry lesson recently. Why did you choose that arrangement?
In doing poetry work with children, for me it's very important to get them hooked into it, and I feel that the teacher reading the poem aloud can be done in quite an engaging way by moving around and making sure that you're looking at the children while you're reading the poem. And I think the U-shape is quite theatrical in a way.
So from a teacher's point of view, there's another challenge here in being an effective teacher, that there's no one classroom layout that's going to be fit for purpose for every lesson. But also, you can't keep changing your desks every 5 minutes, so you've got to make some decisions about what the best layout is for that particular series of lessons, bearing in mind there'll always be some whole class interaction, some group work and some group discussion. I mean, how do you manage that in terms of your own time, and how do you do that in changing your layout around?
For me, it's in the planning, in the schemes of work, in the programmes of study. I'll know the direction of the learning, and I will have the room set out accordingly. I'll also, my classes, early in the year, I'll get them used to rearranging the tables. So rearranging tables actually becomes quite normal, and it becomes a routine.
So actually, if you set up good routines with your learners and they understand the different classroom layouts, you can very quickly get them to rearrange the desks as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.